Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode number 815 for August 31st, 2021, the last day of meteorological summer, which means tomorrow is the first day of meteorological fall. Absolutely. Love this time of the year, the transition from these muggy, hot summer days. So hope you're doing well. We're doing a Tuesday night special. We had a hurricane, as most of you know, that blew through yesterday and, of course, Sunday, and that kind of had us occupied. Quite frankly, it's had me occupied this evening. We've had a rash of tornadoes down in the southeastern corner of my state here in Alabama. Been awfully busy, but got a busy show tonight. I think Ida is clearly going to be one of our topics. I know that Tim Marshall, I think, is going to be on the show. I think Tim was in Houma, Louisiana. He got into the eye, and we'll have some others to talk about Ida. Jimmy Hall of Wet Willie is going to be on the show again tonight. That'll be fun to have Jimmy back with us. So let's see if we can make all this stuff happen here. So let's get the embed code locked over so we can get on the television side. And we will invite the guests. And if you are new to this, this is the magical time of the program where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. So, and if you want to see the actual show content here, move the slider over about maybe 8 minutes. And that's when it's going to start. This part does not get on the produced audio podcast. And most people listen to the show, but there are many that watch either digitally on YouTube or on the television side. And we thank those that do both. Either way, that's cool. All right. So, yes, been awfully busy. Goodness, I've not had a chance to catch my breath. I don't think I've had a chance to go to the bathroom here in probably 5 days. I probably need to go do that, but we'll do that later. It has been excessively busy. I know that Aubrey is awfully busy tonight. She is dealing with the aftermath, the remnants of Ida in her television market. I think they're under a tornado watch. We were hoping that she would be on the show to do an email segment, but my gut feeling says that she's slightly tied up doing her television thing, which we totally understand. And again, that's the reason, so many of us were caught up in it last night. It just would have been a challenge. Thankfully, in my particular television market, we did not have tornado warnings. We did not have flash flood warnings. We got away pretty much unscathed. It was breezy and wet, but not that bad. Most of the tornadoes in my state were down across the southern half of the state in the Mobile and Montgomery and Dothan television markets. And again, Dothan has had some just pretty remarkable tornado activity this evening. And I know there's been some damage, but I am not sure if we had any injuries. I don't think so, which is a good thing. But I'm seeing a tornado warning near Dawson, Georgia, the storms that came out of Dothan. And again, looks like a pretty active day tomorrow for Washington, D.C. and in Baltimore. But yeah, it's, for a long time, when it comes to these tropical systems, we just had to kind of get focused on covering the landfall and the system when it comes on through. But now there is so much to do in advance of a tropical system that it's just like a tornado outbreak or a winter storm. You are so exhausted by the time the event begins. You don't have a whole lot left, and you've just got to find that energy deep down inside somewhere and carry on. The days leading up to it can be very chaotic because you got to work not only the traditional television and radio, but you got to work the social side and, all those different social platforms and the blogs and all this other stuff. So, but again, it is an absolute joy. I will never, ever gripe about it. It's just a matter of finding that energy. Jen, where do you find your energy?
Well, apparently from a cat. I find my energy, coffee helps. Let's see.
Hang
I
on
find
one
my
second.
energy.
I need to do something to fix the audio. Hang on, stand by.
Okay.
Now talk to me.
Can you hear me now? Hello. Is it me?
So hang on, I'm doing something wrong here.
Okay.
I've been so busy. I have been improperly.
No, all good.
Improperly
Hello,
setting
hello.
things up here. Hang on one second. I'm gonna.
We don't have Kim. We don't have any guests. I guess I could invite them, but I know who they are. Since we've had them on before.
I can hear you now.
All right.
Just like a Verizon
Bluetooth.
commercial.
Hi.
Bluetooth issue has been solved.
All right.
James the troubleshooter.
That's right. So you're talking energy. Where do I get my energy? I said coffee. That helps.
Coffee. That
Coffee.
helps.
Yeah.
Well, in the morning, I'll drink like 1 cup of coffee because my wife fixes the coffee pot and it automatically turns on at like 4:30 a.m., when I'm up. So it's just there. And I will typically have 1 cup of coffee and I will probably maybe eat a Pop-Tart.
So sugar is your
something-
energy.
What kind of
Yeah.
Pop-Tart, James? Which Pop-Tart?
Yeah.
Now,
Which
see,
one?
this is weird. So I bet you everybody here, you get all the frosted and all that fancy stuff. I eat blueberry with no frosting, just plain Jane. I'm a very odd eater. Very strange.
That is
Kim, are you
interesting.
inviting the guests? Are you inviting them or me?
Sorry, I wasn't sure what you wanted. I sent off.
I have
emails.
it queued up to send out if you want me to send it, but I didn't want to do it. If you
Yeah,
don't.
go ahead. I have. I can just send it to our little list here too.
And I just sent that.
My favorite is brown sugar and cinnamon.
That was
Okay.
JB's favorite.
That's awesome.
That was it, and he was like on a ration of like 2 a month, and we'd have to
Oh.
sneak them to him.
Yeah. I don't have them often, but I mean, they're good.
They're so good. That's my favorite too. So good.
Oh, yay.
Occasionally, I'll go into this.
Oh man.
I never had those.
What is that?
Cocoa Puffs
Cocoa Puff.
treats.
Yeah.
Treat 8
Cuckoo
bars.
for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah, the nutrition experts that are watching this, they will scream when they see this.
Well, you're
Throw it away.
you're a cereal child of the 70s, probably like me. I still eat Frosted Flakes, Rice Krispies,
Oh, Captain Crunch,
every-
man, come on.
Captain
Oh,
Crunch,
yeah.
but that's in the like top 5. But Frosted Mini
Cr-
Wheats.
Hey, Neil, how you doing?
Hi, Neil.
I'm good. We're talking cereal or what?
Yeah,
We are
Yeah,
cereal
Pop-Tarts.
brains.
I'm a huge Pop-Tarts fan.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, so
Brain
what's your
food.
flavor?
Yeah.
Well, so I like the s'mores, but honestly, most of the Pop-Tarts I get are from gas stations. So it's usually the only choices are either strawberry or blueberry.
Sure.
Living that high life.
That's it. Blueberry Pop Tart from a gas station. That's a show title right there.
Well, if you analyze your food on basically cost per calorie, it's a pretty good deal.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm usually trying to go the other way, Neil. I need like negative calories per cost.
So, do you want to roll the open here and let's get started, or are we waiting on Tim? Or
Yeah, I'll check and see if he has sent any message recently.
he probably heard us talking about Captain Crunch and Pop Tarts, and he hung up on us. He ran.
Was he still in
Right.
Louisiana, Kim?
No,
Or
he
he'd come back
made it
already?
back. Yeah, he was back this morning.
So he's got bandwidth.
Yeah, we had somebody from the National Weather Service in New Orleans, but they can't get a Zoom out.
Yeah.
I guess they could have gone to the office to do it, but apparently it's going to be a real mental health thing too, because there's a lot of processing and stuff to go through, as we've seen in so many disasters.
Well, if you guys want to get rolling, sorry, we can get things started and talk about the modeling piece first. And if we can get Tim in the middle of everything,
he's
the
coming.
music guest
He's
too.
here.
James got to let him in.
He's here.
Oh, good.
Like wings.
He's here. Yeah,
Marshall.
buddy.
Ooh.
Dr. Tim.
All right.
Oh yes.
Right.
The
Can you guys still hear me?
The world is in order now.
Can
Yes,
you guys
we
still
hear
hear
you,
me?
Jen.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Cece was headbutting chords, and all of a sudden I lost everything. And so now I just want to make sure I'm back. She's laying
The show
down
title,
now.
CC is headbutting chords. That would be a good show title. But we can't use a show title before the show starts. So
Sorry,
we'll find another one here. Tim, can you hear us okay?
I hear you perfectly.
All right. You're looking good. You get any sleep?
Yeah, I got some sleep. Good sleep too.
Okay. Well, good. All right. Well, let's get this thing started here. Stand by before we get the good stuff here. And when does Jimmy Hall come on here, Bill? When does he come in?
9:15.
Okay. So, okay. All right. So let's get record.
I want to go to bed by 10, so let's try to
Recorder
be
2.
kind of tight with that 9:15.
All right. Here we go. What are you trying to do? Be healthy or
Sleep.
something? Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Yes, we're kind of a big deal. Ladies and gentlemen, WeatherBrains episode number 815. And coming up in a little bit, we're going to be hearing from Jimmy Hall.
You can have your building.
I can't play that long because we'll get cut off. So welcome to the show. Now, Jimmy Hall of Wet Willie's going to join us in the next hour, but not this hour. A lot of things to talk about. Welcome. This is episode 815 for August 31st, 2021. And this is the last day of meteorological summer.
Yep.
For some, it brings happiness. For some, it brings great sadness. But to me, I'm more excited about tomorrow being the first day of meteorological fall. So, Troy, how's your office repair situation going there?
It's going good. I'm so happy to see Tim Marshall at the bottom of the page, being that he's at the he's a structural engineer. Tim, you know how to lay brick, by the way, any chance? I've got some work to be done outside this window, and you can't find brick. You can't find the brick that we need, and you can't find anyone to put the brick in, and it's just continues to be amazing to me, the supply chain in apparently the banana republic that Texas is. So it, you cannot find things. But other than that, I'm doing quite well. Thank you for asking, James.
Good deal. Well, we'll get Dr. Tim on here in just a second. Let's see, Jen, you almost had a cat catastrophe there a minute ago, didn't you?
Yes, I know. She's running into the cords and disconnected me for just a quick second. But no, I am one of those who's excited about fall. I love fall. It's my favorite season, and ready for the cooler air, and I'm ready for football and all that fall brings, even a little pumpkin. I know that's controversial, but I love the pumpkin. So pumpkin spice for me, but pumpkin spice Pop-Tarts, perhaps.
I don't get the pumpkin thing. I mean, I love pumpkins. I love putting them out. I love the decorative part of it. Love the, Halloween part of it, but something about eating the pumpkins. That stuff's just nasty. I mean, all that gunk you pull out of there, and I'm just not one of those guys, but a lot of people are, but I do like fall as well. Kim, do you like pumpkins? Pumpkin spice latte?
Right. I like pumpkins as a cute little thing. The flavor isn't necessarily my favorite, but I think in the fall it has a place, It's just kind of special. And I need to ask, is my sound coming through okay? Because I'm getting a note from Zoom saying my internet's unstable, which, conditional instability is something that this crew knows how to handle. So
that's a show. That's a show title. Conditional instability is something this crew can handle.
My internet is conditionally unstable.
Yeah. What if they said that about me?
And let's point out that Aubrey is obviously busy and that she's dealing with the remnants of Ida. Her market is under a tornado watch, and it's been, like I said, it's been very busy down here. We've had a series of tornado warnings in the southeastern corner of my state with some very photogenic tornadoes, just remarkable. I'll try and show some of the images and video before we get out of here. But Kim, let's bring in our guest. I can't wait to talk about this big subject of Ida this evening.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad that these two were able to join, especially on such short notice. And what amazing guests to get besides. So friends of the show, both of you, welcome to WeatherBrains. So let's roll and first reintroduce to everybody Neil Jacobs. Neil was on our show in an acting administrator role for NOAA, I think about a year and a half ago. And then we saw you shortly after that gig ended. So now, I think your beard maybe has grown a little longer, but we're excited to see you again. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to in life these days.
Well, the last time we talked, remember the show title, Captain of the Jenny, right? And I said I was going to go, I was serious. I have a boat down in Florida. And I've been down in Florida. I wouldn't really say working as a recreational fish guide because I don't really charge people. So it's not like a legitimate source of income, but I've been taking a lot of people fly fishing down there, and actually just drove my skiff up from Miami through Pensacola, up through Alabama, cut over through Birmingham, and then back to Charleston. And it's currently spending the winter in Charleston.
Wow.
So yeah, I did go all Forrest Gump, but I'm not leaving the weather community. I'm working a little bit as a consultant, a little bit in space, commercial space industry, and then doing some consulting in recreational fish industry, and probably find my way back to numerical weather prediction stuff.
After the way the last couple of years unfolded, I don't think anyone blames you for wanting to just sail off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Not at all. I think that sounds marvelous. And hey, the way the world is, minus hurricane season and boats, being out on a boat sounds like a pretty great place to be. So good choice. Well, I'm glad that you got the note and that you were able to join us this evening. Great to see you. And we'll bring in our other guest, Dr. Tim Marshall. And Tim, I swear, you have been on this show and probably several times, right?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Okay. I thought so. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you are doing. Refresh everyone's memory of you got to experience, since we last saw you, the great Texas freeze event, right? I don't think we've had you on since then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For about 5-6 days, we had no power. It was kind of touch and go there for a while. We get a little bit of power for maybe 30 minutes, and then that was it. And this was kind of they call it a rolling blackout is what they call it. And that was kind of interesting. Got to 42 degrees in my house, and I was wondering if the pipes were going to freeze or not. So I just bundled up and kind of stuck it out and waited for that great power to come back. We are amazed at how much we depend on such things.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit about that critical infrastructure piece as we talk a little bit about the experience of this hurricane, because you were near the landfall spot. So we're excited to hear from you on that. How has your life been in the intervening months? I'm excited that you get the chance still to go out and chase hurricanes. Do you know what number this was of hurricanes you've chased?
I do not offhand. My first hurricane I chased was in 1980, Hurricane Allen.
Yeah.
I was in Corpus Christi. It came on shore in Port Mansfield. So this makes the 41st year really of me chasing hurricanes. It's been an amazing journey. If not chased them, I've done surveys afterwards on just about every major hurricane that hit the U.S. So I've seen quite a few areas of the country get destroyed. And, maybe there's some lessons to be learned here. I was amazed that there were some buildings that in Raceland, Louisiana, that did quite well because they were built well. And that makes all the difference in the world, So
Oh, it does. And we are, I'm sure, all excited to hear about that, because there's no one like you with all of the experience you've had to tell us a little bit of what you saw on the ground. It's so hard to tell from media reporting, how does this hurricane and its impacts stack up against other previous hurricanes? And I know that we can get into some of the conversation about, what hazards we know about, how that, that directly affected at and after landfall. But that impact piece is so societally determined. And so we'll just love to hear from you about everything that you saw when you were on the ground there. And for the listening audience, we're recording this on Tuesday evening when landfall was just 2 days ago, right? This was on Sunday. So we're just a little over 2 days out. At the time of recording, there are over 1 million people still without power, I think, in the New Orleans area and its surrounding suburbs. And it seems that might be one of the big stories of impact for now and some time to come. But we'll get around to that. Let's back up the story a little bit to maybe a week ago. I mean, this is around when things emerged on the proverbial radar. And Neil, I'd love to turn to you for this. I'm sure that you were watching, as you probably are very interested in following tropical weather for the purposes of your lifestyle, but just also because that's your bailiwick. So tell us a little bit about what you saw and when you started to feel like this could be a system to watch.
So you're right. Even though I'm not officially doing any forecasting, I have been spending some time going up and down the East Coast chasing swell. And wasn't really paying attention to a lot of the storms that go in the Gulf, because the Gulf isn't really known for their waves. But this first started showing up on some of the models, some of the global models, before it actually had really been showing up in some of the satellite imagery. And when I think I first noticed it was a little bit east of Texas, somewhere in the off the coast of Brownsville. The Euro was putting it up, and then the GFS, and it was kind of, this was like 21st, 22nd, something like that. I think it was around the late model cycles on the 23rd when it started consistently showing up off the coast of Louisiana. And once there was like 3 or 4 runs in a row where it just kind of kept reappearing in the same spot, I think I was like, well, this is going to happen. And it wasn't long after that you could start to see the signature of some type of rotation down. This is probably southeast of Jamaica somewhere. And so this was an unbelievably well forecasted storm. I've never seen anything like it. And particularly the manual forecast coming out of the Hurricane Center. If you haven't had a chance, go take a look at every single forecast advisory that they produced. There is literally no spread at all between advisory 1 and landfall. I mean, every single track was just right over top of another. The intensity was spot on. And the models were, they waffled around a little bit on the 23rd and 24th. I think it's around probably maybe late on the 24th that they started to get in really good agreement. And this, I could be wrong about this, but I believe they were calling for it to go up to a major really before it was even a named storm. First it was a depression, then I think 1 or 2 advisories had it reaching hurricane, and then it was like the 2nd or 3rd advisory where it went just straight to, this is going to be a major hurricane before landfall. And the track was just spot on. So were the models. And I think the global models, as you would expect, were sort of underdoing the explosive development, but some of the HWRF and some of the high resolution tropical models are doing a pretty good job of that. But we saw this last year too. Every single storm that would go over the loop current area on its way to the northern Gulf would blow up. And this track was going straight over that area of warm water. So, in my mind, I was looking at it and I was thinking, all right, I'm just going to instantly add a category because I know what's going to happen. It's just the same thing that happens every time. And that rapid intensification, the models don't handle it very well. I've got my own theories behind that. I'm sure a lot of other people are. It's a really big focus area in the NWP community, trying to get the rapid intensification problem solved. But the track forecast was spot on. And the intensification, unfortunately, everyone kind of knew that was what was going to happen. And I guess the real question was, are we going to get any wobbles? Is it going to go through some kind of eyewall replacement cycle right before landfall? And these are minor differences that in the big scheme of things probably aren't going to really impact what ends up happening on the ground all that much at that point. But this was, I mean, I know people said, oh, it just happened so fast, we didn't have a lot of warning, but I mean, it was on the other side of Jamaica when we started saying Louisiana was probably going to get hit. And for a storm, I mean, there's storms that sometimes they spin up literally 100 miles off the coast. I mean, this, to me, I thought you couldn't have done a better job forecasting this storm.
Well, it was concerning because, Kim, it appeared on Friday really, in everyone's mind, and it's going into the weekend, sort of the Hurricane Andrew situation where you're going into the weekend and a lot of people, might not be paying attention. I told our hotels in Louisiana Friday morning, this is going to be the worst hotel to ever hit Louisiana. And they thought I was insane, but they prepared accordingly. And I think that was an important message. But I'm shocked that I heard today that people at Tulane say they didn't get a good forecast. And I don't know how they could have not. If anybody with any responsibility was monitoring what was going on, I'm just appalled at that, because you're right, Dr. Jacobs. On the fourth advisory, it said a major hurricane before landfall. That may not have said the fifth most powerful hurricane at landfall in U.S. history, but you couldn't go out there and say that, because by Saturday morning we didn't know whether it was going to actually start rapidly intensifying. We thought it would. I stayed up all night Saturday night, to give last minute bulletins to our hotels, because by 11 o'clock you could see this was going to happen. I'm still just flabbergasted that people could have gotten the same forecast you just described and say that it wasn't a good forecast.
Well, this is actually, in my mind, a really interesting opportunity for a case study and to try to understand, well, what information were they getting? I saw Kevin Clazel, who does emergency management here at the University of Oklahoma, and good friend of the show as well. I saw some commentary he made where he was looking at some of the forecast information that they were either likely receiving through the same kind of system he has access to, or he was looking at kind of at least a piece of what he thought they were seeing. And apparently, from one advisory to the next, Tulane went from having a forecast where they were in an area of what looked like tropical storm force wind kinds of impacts, and that ramped up to very quickly a more significant impact. And part of it could have been that there was a very small shift, even though the shift was very small from one time period to the other. That shift might have included Tulane. So what I see when I see this is our community. We look at forecast information from the sky down to the ground. And so, for our eyes, we're a little bit agnostic maybe to all those little points on the map, but people who are trying to figure out what's going on for them, they're very, very, very attached to every single one of those points. And they can be in an area where, they go from being out to in, and it makes all the difference to them. And we, in our minds, see a little bit of fuzziness around the contours, right, I think, that maybe don't get plotted. And this is something that we're struggling with, I think, a little bit in the severe world, as we kind of look on what's happening in the hurricane world for inspiration to kind of think about if we're moving toward a future where we're going to give, perhaps probabilistic information, something that looks like a cone of uncertainty of a severe thunderstorm. You might have things like wobbles, that happen for all kinds of reasons with storms. And would that same problem of that being in and out, kind of a fact happen for us? And the answer is probably. And dealing with those boundary issues is something we really need to think through. So I think I saw the Tulane tweet and I was intrigued. I mean, it's hard not to feel a really big mix of feelings. And I think, Neil, you've highlighted how great the track forecast was. Let's talk a little bit about what we thought in time about how intensification might bear out, because as I understood it, maybe it's just because I'm not an expert. I will never claim to be an expert in forecasting at all. But I'm a nerd enough to at least follow the conversation. And my impression had been that there were some reservations about how it might unfold because, I mean, it hadn't actually materialized yet. So there's always a little bit of that uncertainty about, well, will it actually coalesce? And then it had to go over, some terrain. And there was a question of, will that terrain actually do something to inhibit its development? Can you talk a little bit about the intensity piece? So,
Sure.
I think we all were kind of worried about rapid intensification once it got into the Gulf, with water surface temperatures being 90 degrees, something extraordinary. I mean, extraordinary.
It was.
You think that's fuel, but before then there were uncertainties, right?
There was. Let me touch on something you mentioned earlier, because I think it's important, and this is purely speculation because I'm not really following the Tulane thing. I seriously try to stay away from Twitter. So a lot of times people get their forecast and it's gridded and they think the forecast is literally for their backyard. And let's take, for example, if you're getting it from a regridded version of the global model, if they're using 1/4 degree or 1/2 degree resolution or whatever, a great example of this is the San Francisco airport. That airport is in the middle of a grid box in the GFS. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, on one end of the runway, it could be visibility of 10 feet with complete fog. And at the other end of the runway, the sun's out. And if you say you're going to get your forecast and everyone in that grid box is going to have a tailored forecast for their specific backyard, and it all comes from that same grid, who knows? If you happen to live on the boundary between two grid boxes and you're talking about something like severe weather or even like the eye wall, you could be getting very, very different wind forecasts. But yeah, to your point, there was a lot of concern about how much structural damage to the core of the storm would happen as it went over the mountains in Cuba. I wouldn't really consider that particular area to be super mountainous, and it literally just went straight over it like it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And so that was, when I saw that happen, that was my first question is it going to hold together as it goes over Cuba, which it did. The second one was, at what point was the outflow boundary? And I can't remember, what was that storm that was off of Baja? There was
the end storm, Nora or something.
Nora.
Yeah, I don't really track the Pacific that much, but the outflow of that was potentially going to generate some upper level wind shear, and so then the outflow of Ida was actually able to fight that off. And then the next thing I was looking at were the dropsonde observations for surface pressure. And when I started seeing every time they'd go through and do a dropsonde, it'd be 2 or 3 millibars lower.
Here we go.
Pass after pass. I was like, well, this is it. There's no stopping it now because it hasn't even hit the warm water. It's all of its options for potential outflow shear were being removed from the table. And it was like, there's really, at that point, there's nothing standing in its way. The question is, did that little wobble to the north take it a little bit too far north of that warm area, that warm core eddy, or does it go straight over it? And it turns out that area of warm water was just so big, even though that wobbled a little bit to the north, it really didn't matter. It was already deepening before it hit that. And when it hit that, I remember I watched on the infrared, I could see the eye clear out. I could see that convection start to wrap all the way around and kind of sort of catch its tail, so to speak. And once it made it all the way around, it was a done deal. I mean, at that point, the storm's you can't really stop it. It's just a matter of, is it going to go through some kind of eye wall replacement and gradually weaken before it strengthens again. And really the only thing that probably kept it from getting worse was the fact that it did have a decent forward speed, and time wasn't on its side if it wanted to strengthen. If that thing would have been moving slower, it probably would have hit 5 status.
Well, Neil, I'm going to go back for a second, because I think one thing, when you said this, I recall that M showed up in the National Hurricane Center guidance. I don't know when. I was going to go back to the other page and check.
Advisory 4.
Folks, let's just call it the way it is. This surprise crap that we hear in the media, and that's where I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm getting tired of hearing about it. folks, let's just face it. One of the problems is that people want us to come to their door and tell them what's going on. We cannot do it. Just because you are not keeping up weather information does not make it a weather surprise. It means apparently you can't even, or not smart enough to get on the internet to look and see what's going on. I'll tell you something else too, Kim, and that's part of Kim's, what Kim looks at, but I'll tell you something else too. This was going into a weekend. I want you to remember that this was going into a weekend, and guess what? People turn media off going into the weekend. And so I can't, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to Dr. Jacobs and the Hurricane Center. I mean, you couldn't have bought a better forecast all the way along. And I'm just tired of hearing people saying things are surprises when they're not. We can't help you if you don't help yourself. People need to keep up with this weather information that we have. A surprise and a forecast, if you're not checking up on the forecast, that's no surprise. That's just because you're slow and you're not following the weather pattern. So that's my soapbox for the night.
Yeah, I don't know what deviation they're referring to. I mean, there was a slight deviation as it wobbled to the north, but the track forecast changed literally maybe half the width of the eye.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, you're going to get hit no matter what at that point. So
yep.
Well, my point was, if you read any of the TCV products, and they're long and unwieldy, but you can pick out your parish or your county.
Yep.
Or the HLS statements, and they're long and they got a lot of information in them. But I keyed on one thing: you're going to have tropical storm force winds, and maybe this is what they were looking at. But you could have winds with gusts to 110, which is what they did have.
Yeah. And again, Bill, one thing too was the HLS out of New Orleans. Those people in New Orleans did yeoman's work for what they had to do. Again, one of the first things I noticed, and it scared the heck out of me when I saw it, was the old statement was back in there. Areas may be inhabitable for weeks and months. That was in the HLS from New Orleans, right at the beginning of the weekend. The Weather Service in New Orleans, Baton Rouge officially, they did a great job at what they did as well.
Well, I had some hope that the eastern eye wall would miss, the city of New Orleans early Sunday morning, and I did give some hope to our teams there, and I had to reverse that by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was clear that they were going to get these same winds for about 10, 12 hours. And I don't know if y'all heard the police chief from Grand Isle on the Weather Channel. I almost cried.
Yeah.
Because he said, look, we just measured 148 miles an hour. How much longer is this going to go on? And the OCM said, you got 3 more hours. He says, you got to stop it. Like the Weather Channel could stop it. We can't take it for 3 more hours. It's just heartrending, especially as you're watching John Humphreys' video, Tim, because he put a camera down there at about 10 feet and it's going underwater. That was the most unreal video. I watched it, intently the whole morning. And it was like, the great video Mark Sudduth had from Hurricane Michael. But it had the water this time, not just the wind and the whiteout conditions. And it was just heartbreaking to see. But now I do have hope that we don't have nearly a crazy number of fatalities here. Is that a fool's hope? Certainly it's not going to be a Katrina, I believe. But maybe we get out of this with a reasonable number of fatalities. You don't want any, but maybe we don't have a crazy loss of life. Do y'all sense that, or is that just too optimistic too early?
I kind of agree with you. I want to ask Tim from his standpoint, his engineering standpoint, because I don't know that I get the full answer, but I think I've got the full answer. Tim, did we learn a little bit with the levee system? Did we work on that enough that ended up, even though the storm wasn't in the same trajectory that Katrina was our levee system in Southeast Louisiana better because of Katrina? And
yeah, it certainly was, and it did quite well for New Orleans. It only a small breach I heard in one area, and the area that I was in had levees that held and saved the cities of Morgan City and Homa. Those were high and dry in a manner of speaking because the levee system worked.
Well, did it also, Tim? Did it work as well? Is the factor to be considered that in a lot of cases that it survived and it held even without pumps in some cases because of the loss of electrical power? So, I mean, everything seemed to go in their favor as far as that was concerned. At least it seemed that way to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, the trajectory of the storm was such that the areas from the track of the eye west were basically spared from any kind of storm surge, and then the storm surge is on the east half. So, yeah, you got the storm surge if the from Burris up to Waveland and that area, and Pontchartrain got surge. So New Orleans levees were definitely put to the test there, but for the most part, west of there, they didn't get the surge.
And Troy, something else, you mentioned the pumps. The pumps are there for the rainfall mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
And we got very lucky that at the international airport, I think we only got 4.39 inches of rain.
Yep.
And the dire forecasts of 12 to 16 inches didn't materialize, luckily. I'm sure that might be underestimated a little bit, but at least it wasn't double digit rainfall.
Yep.
So that worked in our favor as well. But I am really pleased to see that it seems like the levees mostly held. I was fearing that a lot of water was going to get into the Homa area because of the Hurricane Center's forecast. The storm surge forecast 6 to 9 feet into large parts of Homa. And I don't know why that didn't happen. Maybe Tim can comment on that. And then I'll toss it back to Jennifer, and you can go the direction you want to go.
Homa was west of the track. The levee system was not put to the full test there. I was very
That's true. It missed the eye, missed Homa to the right. Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Tim.
Another thing to check out, and a lot of the stream gauges and tide gauges got knocked out, but this storm was moving so fast with the forward speed that you could actually see the storm surge come in and rise real quick. And then as soon as the eye passed over, the winds in the other direction, it literally blew the water back out.
Oh, yep.
And they were below the expected tide at that point.
What a sophisticated interplay of how the water's going to move, and it's the eye walls orientation along the waterways. It's also very just susceptible to very small changes, those impacts. And I want to back up just a second here and bring Tim in to talk a little bit about his experience with being there. So Tim, you mentioned that you set up down there. Where did you decide to set up? As you watched this unfold, you probably had the similar thought to everybody else, watching the system come in, that at least the track forecasts were looking pretty good. Were you setting up hoping to just go for the experience? Were you hoping to just sort of see how everything unfolded? What was your goal, and where were you?
I like wind. So
show title.
Oh, it should have been here on this show.
Yeah. That's just the bottom line. That's why people say, why do you do it? I like wind. That's the way it works. The track forecasts were phenomenal. And because of that, it turns out that it made it easier for me. As soon as it cleared Cuba, I booked a hotel room in Morgan City. And this was before, really just when the hurricane kind of watches went up. And so I booked a room in Morgan City. This hotel has a generator, so it was going to remain. And I felt confident Morgan City is surrounded by a levee system that would hold there. So the phenomenal turn of events was I was in the eye at 5:15, and then I emerged out of the eye and was in my hotel room by 7:30 with a beautiful air conditioning, and I could get a nice hot pocket meal for dinner. And it was just most of the extraordinary changes that happened there. And My big concern was Highway 90. Highway 90 is the artery in southeast Louisiana, and it's a 4-lane divided highway, but it does have trees near it. And that was my lifeline. And I didn't want to get too far from that. And home was not on Highway 90. It's about 7 miles south. And if you're familiar with that area, there's so many power lines and trees. If you get more than a half mile away from Highway 90, you run the risk of not being able to get back to Highway 90 because that trees, power lines come down, you can't maneuver. And so the strategy was to stick as close to Highway 90 and hope that Highway 90 wasn't shut down with trees and power lines on it. That's my only lifeline. It's the only place. So that strategy wise, and half of this is really not only in the forecast, but in how you're going to get in and get out of there. I don't want to be stuck for 2 days. Okay. So I want to get in, get through the eye, and get out of there almost immediately, because nobody wants me around there. I don't want to be around there afterwards. So
so Tim, what are your most important tools that you carry with you when you're hurricane chasing?
Well, the first thing is planning. I mean, I had 40 gallons of fuel extra. I had planned. Had a cooler with dry ice in it and provisions for a couple of days just in case. I went online and looked at routes. You can go take a tour from Morgan City to Houma via right online, and you can see what's in the way in terms of power lines and trees. That's my number one concern is getting flooded or stuck somewhere and I can't get out. So I went there and I looked for parking garages and I looked for hotels that had generators. And so there's a lot of pre-planning going into this before you even get in the vehicle and drive out. So that's what I did. My goal was to get to Morgan City and then go from there. And forecast is going to change a little bit. Is it going to be Houma? Is it going to be further east? Is it going to be further west? Where's this going to be? But 90 is my lifeline, and it goes east-west. I can maneuver along it for a certain period of time before it gets too bad. So that's what we did. We went to. I was with Evan Bookbinder, an NWS out of Pittsburgh, and he flew down, and we went out to the Morgan City area, and then we went east on 90. We first went to Houma and looked at the parking garages. They were shut down, and the police would not allow anybody in their parking garages. But it was 7 miles off Highway 90, and I just didn't like the terrain at all. It was terrible in terms of trees and power lines. And I knew I needed just to be close. I mean, really close to Highway 90, if not on Highway 90. So we decided to go a little further east to a little town called Raceland, and that's where we stayed. And watching those wobbles on the eye on the radar, every once in a while it'd pull a little west, every once in a while pull a little east, it's like, oh my gosh. So we did our best, and then all of a sudden we started losing cell service, and it's like, oh my gosh, if we lose cell service, we're really not going to know where this thing's at. And we just decided to stay right within a few hundred yards of Highway 90 off at Raceland, and that's what we did.
I can remember, Tim, as late as Hurricane George in 1998, that US 90 would go underwater very easily, and they had an extended period where there was long fetch into southeast Louisiana, and it went underwater. But they raised that road in the early 2000s, and I guess it's much better now, because it seemed like as you're talking about, people could move back and forth between Gray and Raceland and through that area successfully.
Yeah, and also I didn't want to get where we had the surge so coming on. So it's basic wherever you think the eye is going to be, you want to keep from that point westward. West is your out. You don't want to ever think about going east. You want west is your out. And I did that in Harvey, and I did that in a lot of other hurricanes, that's my strategy, is to bow out of this thing and to get out of there and get home as quickly as I can after the storm.
Well, being a hotel person, I know, you want to look for a certain, set of amenities that are going to be their generator. Do you look at construction of a hotel before? Do you know where your places are and all your typical target locations? Those are maybe concrete or not wood or not whatever.
Yeah, I do. I look at their construction. The standard hotels that are out there, like the Holiday Inns and the Hamptons, they're pretty standard issue hotels, and they're pretty good construction. My main concern is flooding, of course. I don't want 10 feet of water in my hotel, and I don't want to lose my vehicle. My vehicle is my lifeline. I've got to keep my vehicle at all costs. Well, the beauty of it was, and I picked out the Holiday Inn Express in Morgan City. It is right next door to the on-ramp to the elevated platform highway. So I could, if in case of flooding, just drive up the platform or just park my car up there. And then it's only 100 yards to my vehicle if I have to wade through water or anything like that. So, but my vehicle is the thing that has got to come out of this thing unscathed.
So you mentioned you love wind. You went to experience this thing. So tell us about it. What was it like? And how did it stack up against all these other hurricanes? Did it resemble any other in your memory?
Well, it was exciting, of course. And the thing that was kind of unique about this hurricane was the eye wall. There was a secondary eye wall. There was actually two eye walls here. And by having that secondary eye wall, it sort of protected the primary eye wall from being eroded. A lot of these hurricanes get eroded with drier air coming in out of the west, and they die fairly quickly. Katrina got eroded badly. Ivan got eroded badly, but this one did not, and it's because of that secondary eye wall out there. And the secondary eye wall, we had some gusts maybe to 100 there, but it was the primary eye wall that was really kind of unique. It was a white froth, a very fine, kind of misty rain, not very heavy, but it was whiteout. It was just a total whiteout. Everything was going horizontal. So that was, of course, to me, the best place to be is the eye wall. Everything else is just window dressing, So the eye wall is the meat and potatoes. It's the tenderloin of the steak. It's really the place you want to be. The eye, of course, is the kind of the goal. It's like playing, that miniature golf. You get okay. You're in the hole. So there you go. But the eye wall to me is the best part of it. I just amazing to see it.
I bet. And I know Jen is sitting on a question. I'll pass it to you in just a second. I just want to ask one more thing really quickly. So, you when you're in situ watching these hurricanes happen, I mean, I always think this when I'm watching hurricane coverage, and you have, the Weather Channel folks, CNN folks, and they're sitting out, trying to give you a sense of what it's like, and they're exposed to the potential debris. You've got to be thinking about that too, and probably watching, how are the structures around me faring? And what did you see of that? How did you see, because, the wind speed, it was a high-end Cat 4 making landfall, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit. And, as we talked about a little bit earlier, and Bill, you heard that report from the local sheriff who said, get this gone. It can't be over me for that many hours. How did everything structurally fare? I think, something that people remembered in all of this was with Katrina, even it was sort of it's not really a huge story until the levees broke. And, sometimes we focus so much on these wins, and even if they're over you for a good long time, what did you see happen?
Yeah, well, I positioned myself on the lee side of a row of very dense bushes, not trees, bushes. And that was a windbreak. And so I was not bad off at all. And of course, I'm parallel to the wind, so that my tail of my truck is facing east. because we had east winds. And so really I'm up front and quite protected, and I don't want to be next to trees, but a row of bushes that were about 10 feet high provided ample a windbreak for me. And I got a great view looking across the street to a shopping center, and there were several small buildings and a big tall sign and a strip shopping center beyond that. So I had a wonderful view west, and that's where I would film. So it was great. I was, eating my gorp, and it's like being at the movies.
So Tim, is your vehicle hardened at all, or is it just a stock truck? No. Anything special about it with tires or windows or anything?
No, and so it's a standard vehicle, so it can get a flat tire, and that's why you have to be very careful driving around. During the eye, there's all these boards with nails on it on the road, and just we want to be very careful. I know several chasers who got flat tires on this chase, and that's why you got to really be careful. I don't want a flat tire. I don't want to be out changing or trying to find a place. Usually, if that happens, I would go under a bridge and change a tire there, but I don't want to do that. That's not a fun thing to do.
So I want to go back. I was frantically looking up things that I remember posting over the weekend, and I wanted to read a couple of things. I want to go back to this whole, we had no warning crud. The heightened messaging was coming from the National Weather Service, New Orleans, this entire time. And there was a tweet that came out from Lauren Nash, who's the warning coordination meteorologist. And she posted this on the 27th. If you're under an evacuation order, get out. If you aren't and you don't know what your house can stand with wind flooding, get out. If you're inland and you don't want to be without power for a week or more, get out. I can't tell you what to do, but if you have the means, go. So there's already, this heightened, warning about it. And then on the 28th, the Weather Service, I was very taken by what they had in their forecast discussion. And this was at 6:00 in the evening. And at this point, we still have winds are probably 85, 90 at the center. It really didn't blow up until the next morning, but their words were just so potent. And once sustained tropical storm force winds move in, first responders will button down and you will be on your own. Please understand this. There is a possibility that conditions can be unlivable along the coast. I think Troy was mentioning that for some time, and areas around New Orleans and Baton Rouge could be without power for weeks. And they brought up the previous hurricanes. We've all seen the destruction and pain caused by Harvey, Michael, and Laura. Anticipate devastation on this level. And if it doesn't happen, then we should all count our blessings. Please, again, if you have the means to leave and you are 1, in a mandatory or voluntary evacuation zone, leave. 2, if you're in a very flood prone area, leave. 3, uncomfortable, have trees around your house, leave. Do not play around and say, I've been through Andrew, Camille, Katrina, Betsy, all storms are different. So the wording was there, is very strong. I wrote to my manager, my boss, on Friday, and I said, I really want to do coverage this weekend. We have the NPR stations out of New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And I said, I'm concerned. I was already concerned. And I don't know if it was just seeing what was happening with the models and that it could explode. I don't know if it was because it was a year ago we had Laura, or if it was because it was going to happen on the anniversary of Katrina. All these things were happening and everything was emotional and heightened. And you wanted to make sure that you get the wording out to the best of your ability. And, it was hard to watch on Saturday to sit there and go, okay, it's cleared Cuba and it's really not doing the explosive thing yet. So, but we got to get the word out, because anything could happen. And by the time the Sunday happens, then you are on, I was on there a lot. I was so grateful because they cleared programming and they just let me talk, which I appreciated, because I could try to say what I could say to try to let people know what was happening. I guess, I don't know if there's a question here or just to lead into a discussion, and maybe this is for Kim. How do we, with that type of wording, and that's being expressed from broadcasters, it's all over social media, you're trying to get the word out. How do we let people know? And And it's just, we can't hold their hand and say, okay, everybody, I'm going to carry you out into the out of the evacuation zone, but how do we get the word out more than what we did with this? And without people saying, we didn't have any warning.
Well, Jen, let me also real quick tell you this, because I haven't mentioned these people and we need to. And James, you know this. Folks, the people at WWL, WDSU, the people at Fox 8 in New Orleans did a phenomenal job. They were on top of this. I thought it was very well covered. David Bernard is a former student of mine. He's at Fox 8 there, and I think they did a great job. And unfortunately, most of them got pushed out of the city when the electricity failed and generators failed. But I thought the TV media in New Orleans just did an amazing job going into this. And I say a very good job and job well done in a tough situation for them. So I agree with Jen. I mean, what else do we do? What else do we do?
This is a really good moment, I think. I'm very interested in Neil's perspective from putting back on his time in the administrator's role, because one of the things that you got to do, Neil, was interface with FEMA, and you did it over and over and over and over again last year in that remarkable hurricane season. So you can really speak to this. I'd love to hear you talk about time, because one of the things that's so striking about this conversation is the timeline of when things were really ramping up, and that wording, Jen, that you were sharing. It sounds like it was about 48 hours out, from impact, with the impassioned plea that Lauren made, the WCM of the New Orleans office. And, Neil, it's my understanding that in emergency management, one of the things that they ask for before they're going to be able to do, especially major evacuation of an urban area, is 72 hours. And so was time not on our side on this one? What did that look like to you?
Well, I wouldn't say it was on your side as if this was a storm that came off Africa and we saw it coming 2 weeks out. But anytime you get a storm that forms in the Gulf, you're likely going to be T-minus 3 or 4 days at best before it hits land somewhere. So that's just kind of the nature of the geography and where it forms. But it also really depends on areas that are at risk and where you're trying to evacuate. So when I was at NOAA, and we had a really, really busy season that year, every time there would be a named storm with a landfall threat, I'd be over at the NRCC at FEMA, and we would be coordinating days in advance. And there was several things that they were interested in, particularly with coronavirus and all these other logistical problems you have to deal with. But it was, what is your confidence in the track, not just where you think this is going, but how confident you are. And believe it or not, having very little confidence is a very, very important thing. I know there's a lot of tendency, not just in the forecast, but in the general science community, to sort of downplay things you have little confidence in and really highlight the stuff you are confident in. But being able to tell someone, I've got very little confidence in this, is an important metric for them. The other thing is how complicated it is to evacuate a certain area. Like take, for example, the Keys, like Ocracoke Island, Adair County, North Carolina. These places are incredibly complicated to evacuate because there's very few ways out. Other places are relatively simple and you can get people out pretty quick. And then the other thing they were really interested in are what's going to be it's really the storm surge that's the problem, because it cuts off the roadways, and they really need to know where can they pre-stage assets and still have road access to them, and be sort of understanding what the flooding scenario is going to look like, and not just with the storm surge, but after the storm, the rainfall and the runoff and everything else. That as much sort of preparation that they can get in place in advance is what they're really after. And to be honest, once the storm was really probably 6 to 12 hours out from landfall, my job was basically done. At that point, there's really nothing else from what I could do to really help, other than to just sort of then start organizing all of the assets for disaster recovery and reconnaissance and overflights for damage and things like that. But, obviously more lead time is better, But I think for this particular scenario with a storm coming through the Gulf, this was about as much as you're going to get. And I don't think you're going to get a forecast that was going to be any better. So it's easy to look back on it at this point. I don't think they could have done anything better. I think it was a perfect forecast. It just comes down to what's your risk tolerance and how much are you willing to do in advance.
Hmm. And this
I
is
was
where,
I
you know,
was surprised, Kim, that they didn't. They said they didn't have time to implement contraflow
yeah,
on the interstate system
that's,
coming out of New Orleans. But if I'm
yeah.
looking at the 5 a.m. advisory on Friday, and it shows me there's a major hurricane that's going to be right off my port bow at Sunday afternoon at 6 p.m. It looks like that would have been when I would have been working with the state troopers to get to get the contraflow ready to go, because we might need it. It looks like that was an afterthought. I thought that was one mistake. I
don't know what all goes into that, but I have seen them do that, particularly on I-26 getting out of Charleston. And I don't think they really needed a whole lot of lead time to do that. When I was there, I mean, I was there when Hugo hit. I was there when there were some other storms that were not nearly as bad as Hugo. And I mean, maybe the decision was made a while before they announced it, but it really seemed like once they decided to do it, flipping the direction was really, I mean, everyone kind of wanted to get out. It's not like you had a lot of people trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, just us crazy storm chasers. That's the only ones going south.
Just flying down the highway like an Independence Day, the one car going toward the White House with the big alien ship over it. You're that one guy going, and all the cars are trying to go out, and they're giving this dirty look like it's because of you that we can't use that road. Yeah, I mean, this is the really interesting question. What did happen? And I think that to really speak to that, we need to be a little bit more in the space of those decision makers, because it had been my impression, Neil, last year there had been a number of relatively similar tracks taken by systems coming up through the Gulf, and that they had undergone rapid intensification. And I was trying to remember if there had been evacuation outside of areas that were fairly rural. So I don't think that we maybe even heard about it, right? Because it wasn't New Orleans getting evacuated. It was areas off to the west. We were talking about, Beaumont, between the areas that lie between Beaumont and New Orleans were really the targets of all of those hurricane after hurricane after hurricane that Louisiana took. And so maybe there was a COVID layer to this too, that perhaps under normal conditions, having, an evacuation plan and contraflow wouldn't be a big thing, but trying to manage the movement of people with everything else going on might be a little bit more of a concern. Were other cities around them saying, hey, we can't handle this? I'm very interested in learning more about how all that unfolded. And yeah, Neil, I don't know if you can speak to any of that from the experience of last year. I know I always sound like such a contrarian on here, but part of it is that I understand and hold your feelings of incredulity seeing these responses, and it does hurt. It does, and it's very frustrating. And my role in all of this, I try to be someone who's trying to help us understand why things unfold the way they do in society, so we can learn to address them, or if there's nothing much better we can do to live with triage, and sometimes when you have crap options on the left and right, you just choose the least crap. So sometimes, that might have been what was happening here. So Neil, just, what does that look like to you? Your perspective.
Well, I mean, the least crap option was usually my preferred choice in several different cases. The decision really came down to, well, first of all, even though Louisiana got hit multiple times, it wasn't like we were having the east side of the eye wall go over a major metropolitan area. So we got lucky in that sense that it was the most severe parts of the storm were kind of in rural areas. And so while evacuation was going to be less of a logistical problem, it was potentially going to be more of an outreach messaging problem, because a lot of these places are harder to reach. They're a little bit harder. They're not as convenient to evacuate. And it may take, I don't know what news sources these people get or how to reach them, or if we're going to run into trouble convincing them to leave or not. Hence some of the language like unsurvivable and things like that. And then certainly there was a sort of a decision matrix with coronavirus factored in. It wasn't necessarily as much related to the evacuations as it was the shelters. A lot of people were a little bit reluctant to want to go to shelters because they're going to be around other people, and trying to get a lot of the PPE and the protocols, and it's not like you can do rapid testing for people, but to try to separate them and give them masks and protective equipment. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to take your odds with a virus with maybe a single digit mortality rate, or like a 70% mortality rate of trying to stay in your house with a 15-foot storm surge? I mean, that it doesn't take a statistician to tell you which option that would probably be better. But that the human brain is wired very, very weird. It's not necessarily rational. And you could easily think, well, I'm just going to stay put. I'm not going to leave. And then, so that was, it wasn't, but that didn't get factored into the forecast. So from the Hurricane Center and the forecasting, it was very objective. It was, here's the forecast. These are what the ensemble outputs are telling us. This is what the water level is going to be. The water level is going to be higher than your roof. Time to leave. And so that was actually a pretty objective calculation. But if you issue that warning, it doesn't necessarily, I mean, people won't necessarily follow it. But I do have to say, after reviewing a lot of the stats from last year, and if you look at how many 911 calls were put in for people after landfalls to come get rescued, there were very, very few, which tells us that, outside of the fact that it didn't obviously land in a metropolitan area, that the evacuation compliance was really, really high. I've heard estimates of well over 90%, which, I mean, if you look at what's going on in the news and everywhere, I got to say, if the Weather Service and the Hurricane Center, if you look at credibility of government agencies from the perspective of society, they got to be at the very top of the list. And so that even if you get the forecast perfect, and even if you issue all this stuff, you're still kind of up to the person to make the decision to leave. And so that, I think, is where the social science aspect is so crucial, because you can give people very, very perfect information and they'll still make an irrational decision. And it's how you give them that information that I think makes or breaks whether they make the decision that's going to save their life or not.
Yeah, and there's a really key role played by some of these decision makers, like the mayor and the people who have the resources to get people out who don't have access. So sometimes it's individual decision making and people saying, I want to leave or I don't want to leave. But, especially for New Orleans, we know this story. This is a story of people who can't always get out because they don't have vehicles. They don't have means. They don't have a place to go to. They don't have the funds to stay in hotels for a week at a time or more. They're afraid of leaving the only possessions that they have. They're worried about looters. There are so many layers of worries and concerns and barriers that, sometimes it's choice and sometimes it's not. And we know for New Orleans, with Katrina, that was a lesson learned, a big lesson learned. And they made a lot of strides in their intervening years to have methods of getting people out. And this is where I was a little bit confused. I was confused about why the contraflow wasn't able to happen, and you're watching that on Saturday going, now's the time, guys. Like, now's the time to really open these floodgates. And you just look at Google Maps and it's just red lines of people trying to get out, and the other pathway just completely green. Tim, I don't know if you can speak to if you saw that lines of people trying to leave as you're getting in. But yeah, it was very confusing to watch that. And I'm not sure that for me, I'm as concerned about the individuals on the ground not getting out. I feel like there was a lot of desire to leave. I think that desire was very much there. And I don't know if all of the infrastructural pieces came together to get people out that wanted to go. So
And
it's
it seems to me like too, you know, in the contraflow situation, leave 12 hours before you think you need to leave. Because, you know, Friday night, those roads were clear as they could be, you know, through the night. If you could have gotten your car Friday night and left, you'd had smooth sailing all the way to Alexandria or Birmingham or wherever there were hotel rooms available. So, you know, there's if you know you're going to have to evacuate early to avoid that. The worst thing in the world I could think of is sitting for 11 hours in evacuation traffic.
Yep.
Just be the worst thing.
Well, and you have to wonder, you know, I think about it with the eyes of, okay, if it had been me, and you're hearing about this a couple days ahead of time being a possibility, and you're wondering, you know, is it worth the hassle to get out? So even if you have the means, right now, there are a lot of people who are financially strained because they're out of work. There are a lot of people who have that are sick or have family who are sick. And there are a lot of concerns about, okay, if I'm going to go someplace, I know that there's COVID everywhere right now. Even though it's summer, where last year it wasn't quite this degree, you know, but the summer we had hit a bit of a lull after the big spring wave. Right now we're experiencing a huge wave, and the big story in places like Louisiana and here that we're inundated with day after day is the hospitals are full. You know, we have a childcare provider who she had to go to Houston to get medical care. She's in the hospital now, and she couldn't get a bed here for a very serious health condition. And I mean, that's what we're living with. And so you think about, if I leave, and something happens to us, will I have a hospital there? Like, there's that uncertainty too of the places you're going to. And you might not want to leave until you really think you have to go. So I hear that messaging that gets ramped up Friday evening, and I think there are probably a lot of people who heard it and felt, okay, now's about the time. I'm going to pack up tonight and leave tomorrow. And that's what I'm concerned happened, was that, you know, where they might have gotten out a little bit sooner in ordinary times, maybe all these other issues, you know, facing people in the decision problem made them think, until it's really, really, really bad, I'm going to hedge my bets and stay here. A lot to think about, and I really hope that there is some sort of post-disaster assessment. Tim, what day was it that you arrived on the scene?
I arrived just the day before the hurricane. I wanted to get down there, and I had a room the night before in New Iberia. But again, the hotels went very quickly once the warnings went up. Well, I had the hotels already booked days earlier, just as it came off Cuba, because the track forecast was really consistent. If you looked at, and I just sent you all a email, and Bill Reed just sent this to me. He sent me the quote, the deviations that we were talking about at the top. You'll see this is one of the most consistent tracks that you've ever had in a hurricane. It's just amazing, which, like I said, made my job a little easier. So I got down the night before. I will tell you, very few people came out of Southeast Louisiana compared to Rita and Katrina that I saw. We didn't have any of these traffic jams of, you know, gridlock coming out. I will say that that's because I was on Highway 90. So I don't know what it was like on 10 or I-20, or I-12 rather, but to me, Highway 90 was not very many people were coming out.
And Neil, a comment to your supposition about the Weather Service being the most trusted agency in the government. That's as long as you hide the Sharpies, I guess. That'll be all I'll say about that.
Show title.
But, hide the Sharpies. Because you know you can sow disinformation in any situation. You know, unfortunately, that didn't happen this time. Seems like.
Hey, let me jump in here. I know we got to shift gears in a minute. For everybody here, so television, meteorologist, reporting from the eye wall during landfall, wearing helmets, good thing or a bad thing? What's message? What do you think? Because I've seen a lot of more commentary this time for some reason than any other hurricane to me on social media. So good thing, bad thing.
Once again, did you see the TWC video clips are on social media with them sitting there going hunkering down like this and two guys walk behind them just casually? It happened again today. It's just, this is just, it's getting ridiculous. I don't even watch these. Sorry.
Or there was somebody who did a cartwheel behind Cantori on one of them.
I saw that.
So I'll be honest with you. When I was young, I wanted to be in the yellow slicker on the beach. It's coming. I wanted to do that. I don't now. I don't. I just don't think it's helpful. And I know what they're trying to do. And this is just my opinion. I know what we're trying to do, but I think it's a disservice, in my opinion. I just don't know that it helps. Everybody wants to see visuals and all that kind of stuff, but I think we need to be better at the messaging it doesn't help that we're seeing it. It's not, that while it's happening, it's what's happening before 48, 72 hours before to let people know this is what could happen, making the comparisons to previous hurricanes and just the science is so good now to do that. I don't need to see it. I think it makes us less credible. It makes meteorologists look like a bunch of jokesters standing out there blowing in the wind. That's my opinion.
And I will say to me,
Mark Sudduth and them are doing what John Humphreys did with those cameras that were placed in fixed locations.
That's effective. That's effective in my opinion.
I learned more about what happens in a hurricane from Mark Sudduth's video from Michael, and then this Humphreys video, which was just phenomenal. I saw storm surge happen. Yes. I saw the wave action on top of it. I saw this frothing that you're talking about, Tim. It was amazing, and I knew it was going to go out eventually, and it finally did. But till then, it was must-see television to me. Because that's where you don't want to be. You don't want to be there.
The security camera video from Grand Isle, and so many of these places that they had fiber and they still had connectivity, and they were showing this. To me, that told more of a story than anything else. And I'm not knocking anybody that was a meteorologist down there doing what they're told to do. But I sometimes wonder if it's more about the personalities and the people and the meteorologists instead of the people that actually live there and the impact. And again, they're doing what they're told to do. I'm not faulting them at all. But to me, there's no doubt those unmanned cameras provided stunning visualization of what's happening here without, distraction, if you will. So, but I don't know. Is it time to stop? That's something we have to think about. So, Bill, it's 9:15. You want to pivot here real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a great show back during the pandemic with our friend Jimmy Hall, who is a great Alabamian and a fantastic musician. Of course, he was the songwriter and leader of the band Wet Willie, which we all loved, had a couple of huge hits in the 70s that we all still adore. And we wanted to say hello to Jimmy tonight, have him come on for just a minute, tell us what he's been up to, what he's been doing. If he's got a harmonica laying around, we don't ever mind if he plays a few bars and keep on smiling, because we could really use a smile about right now, Jimmy.
I hear you talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great. So, good. Jimmy, you won a Grammy Award for your work with Fisk Singers on their album. Talk about that. That had to be quite a high.
Well, it was, and I just think better late than never. But I was asked to sing on this concert at the Ryman Auditorium here with Fisk Jubilee Singers celebrating their 150th anniversary, and was one of so many great special guests, CeCe Winans, Keb Mo, Leanne Womack. There were several others, and a full house. and we chose a song not known for being more of a gospel. Well, it is a gospel song, but not known to be done in this style. And we put a little bit more soul in it, into the arrangement, and it just lifted it up. It really did. Well,
and the Fisk University Singers were important in the civil rights era, Jimmy.
Oh yeah.
If I remember correct, you may have studied their history. I remember seeing it as part of the some of the great documentaries on the civil rights era.
Well, they traveled the world as spreading that kind of music, especially singing it more in a classical way, singing a little bit more properly. A lot of old gospel songs, old slave songs, and they're just amazing singers and amazing people, I tell you. And this album, it shines a light on them at a time that I think it just really meant something to the school and to the singers, and to me to be a part of it.
So you've been on a national tour with the Blackberry Smoke, right? The Alma Betts band.
Yeah, I flew in,
and you get to sing some of your old songs with them. They're covering them.
They recorded my song "Keep on Smiling" and "Grits and Groceries" on an EP that we recorded right before COVID last year, and this tour was supposed to happen in 2020, but COVID shut it down. But we cut this EP with me singing those two and playing harp on some of it. And they did some Allman Brothers songs. They did some Marshall Tucker songs. They did one Little Richard song on there. So it was used for a promotional piece to help promote this tour, which now has almost finished. We just did 8 shows in about 10, 11 days all over. Played at Nashville, Atlanta. We played Cincinnati, New York, Boston. So I just flew in from Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Did you see the boss while you were there?
We were around. We were playing some of his songs, just to honor the area and his legacy there at the Stone Pony and in Asbury Park. Yeah. So we got one more show in October. We're gonna kind of wrap it up at the Red Rocks Amphitheater. It's a very iconic, beautiful venue out in Colorado.
That's going to be a real special
event.
It'll
be my first time out there.
And another special event, the governor of Alabama has declared that September 25th is Wet Willie Day in our state.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an honor, and we're real proud of that, because it puts up. We're doing a show in Montgomery called Tavern Fest, and we're supposed to do it last year. We were going to try to do it in April of this year, but we're doing it on September 25th in Montgomery. And Wet Willie and some of our special guests will be there, and all of our families, and just a lot of great people are going to be coming. And
if any of our listeners in the Southeast want to go to that event, you can get tickets on Eventbrite. Just go to Eventbrite and search for Wet Willie Tavern Fest, and you'll find it there.
Yeah,
we'll put that in the show notes too, Jimmy, because that's a good thing. And so you've been working hard during the pandemic. You got a new album coming out, huh? Well,
yeah. I think a lot of my peers and friends that are musicians got creative during that period. You're sitting around going, well, I can't really play live shows, but and we streamed some things. We did some Zoom stuff, and we just trying to keep the word and our presence out there. But I went in the studio, actually. Well, we did a lot of writing. I was co-writing some songs and writing some with various people, and just getting the material together. And Joe Bonamassa is the producer, and Josh Smith was his co-producer on this. And we recorded here in Nashville at a great studio called Ocean Way. And it's a former church, and it's a beautiful facility. but this album, we were trying to see if we could do some recording out in California in January, but with COVID, it just wasn't a good time. So we recorded it here, and still kind of doing the last minute finishing touches on the mixes and making sure everything's just right. We're trying to get it out before the end of the year, but I co-wrote 9 of the 11 songs on it. And one of the ones I didn't write, my son Ryan, my oldest son Ryan, wrote a great song called Dream Release, and it's about 2 brothers, Greg and Dwayne Allman, and it tells a story about their relationship. Yeah.
So Jimmy, and James, you probably played some Delbert McClinton in your day, didn't you, on the radio somewhere along the way?
So on track of my life.
Jimmy, he's retiring, and you're going to get to play with him in Las Vegas with some other big stars.
Yeah, he retired. Was it earlier this year? And we're going to be playing a festival actually next week in Las Vegas, which several days during the week, but mostly like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday out there. And I'm really excited because I've done it several years in a row, but I'm more excited to do it as opener or play right before Delbert's set, because we've done so much touring together through the years. I've done his cruise. He has the Sandy Beaches cruise, and I've done that every year since 1998. And so I actually did the cruise last January before COVID.
So Jimmy, you got a son named Ryan. I have a son named Ryan. He's a music producer in Nashville. So there you go.
I got to look him up.
So yeah, really, I got to get you 2 guys together. So tell me about this studio you're in. Is this your home studio?
This studio is kind of my home away from home, especially doing Zoom things like this, and even doing some Zoom writing and rehearsing. I think my friend, you want to say hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Nick Nguyen.
Hey, Nick.
Hi, Nick from the band Bone Pony, and we doing a lot of work together, and so it's my place. And like you said, home away from home is a good way for him to put it, because he's, especially during the pandemic, we did a bunch of stuff here, and
we collaborated. This is right around the time of some weather here in Nashville. You guys talk about weather. So 2020 in May, we had a very crazy weather. What would you call it? A weather happening, Was
it the tornado you're talking about?
Well, the one where my power was out.
Yeah, the tornado.
What do you call it? Updraft or a downdraft and it's not a tornado.
Microburst. How about that?
Microburst. Thank you. And I expect you guys would know more about it than me. But so a lot of things happened. We had a lot of trees down, but we had floods. We had major power outages. And somehow Nick heard that
Ryan was looking for some power. Yeah.
Yeah, my son Ryan was mentioned somewhere online that we were out of, our power was out. And Nick reached out to me and brought me a generator, set it up, fired it up, and I said, now that's a real friend. Just show up and get my power back on. And then from there, we started talking about collaborating and writing some together. And we've been doing that. We wrote a song.
We did, yeah. It speaks to how close the community of Nashville is. We had run in the same circles for decades with my band Bone Pony and everything
cruises
that he does.
And all that.
So we had done a bunch of Skinner kind of related cruises and stuff like that. So we knew each other from the same circles, the same venues, but had never really worked together. When you're in the rat, and this speaks to a lot of people in this world during the last 18 months, is you're in the rat race and you don't even know your neighbor or people that you are colleagues with, and that kind of brought us together, and everything had stopped anyways. And his wife, Karen, was like, hey, you got to do this graduation song for my son was graduating from high school and his from the medical.
Yeah, my youngest son was attending this medical tech school in Los Angeles, actually where my sister-in-law, his aunt, is the CEO, the head of that school. So he was graduating in this class of students doing ultrasound and MRI and everything. And we wrote a song called Put One Foot in Front of the Other as the graduation theme song. So that was a start.
But it was also emblematic of like this world that we were in, and we were kind of, so it's been wonderful. So it has been his home away from home. He does all this stuff, and
even my sons have been here recording and rehearsing.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's all in the family.
That's where he is. So
okay, so Jimmy, your wife's name is Karen.
These coincidences are just coming fast and furious.
This my wife is Karen. Yes.
So my wife's name is Karen, and we have a son named Ryan. This is the weird zone here. But now, were you there during the March 2nd, 2020 tornado in Nashville? Is that the event you're talking about, Jimmy?
Yes, that's what he's talking about.
Well,
yeah.
The storm I mentioned before was in May, but that tornado, I was in town, and it was horrific. And just to think that it would, I don't know, it might have to do with the way that Nashville is kind of in a bowl surrounded by mountains or hills, and we're down lower. But the down north of town and downtown, there's something about, because there was a tornado about 96 or 98 that hit downtown?
98. 98.
I was in Japan on tour, and I hear about it watching television in Japan, and they said, Nashville, Tennessee hit by tornado downtown. I'm going, oh, I call my wife. Are you okay? Is everything all right? And she said, oh, it's okay. We saw it hit town, though. We could actually see parts of it go through downtown. But I wonder what it is about that area that's what this tornado back last year hit East Nashville in the north part also. Maybe following the river. Maybe there's something there.
Well, so let me go way back now.
Okay.
By chance, you were not in Mobile during Hurricane Frederick in 1979, were you, by chance?
Okay. Some of my friends were, and some of my guys that I know in music were. And I remember the devastation and all the damage there. Some of the oak trees on Government Street downtown got a lot of the tops were blown off, and just a lot of damage and flooding. But I had already moved from Mobile to Macon, Georgia at that point. Well, this is 79. Yeah, I was still in Macon at that point, still visiting down, and whenever I could see my parents and my sisters. And I'm one of 6, so I've got 3 sisters and a brother down in Mobile.
Yeah, that was my first week of television in this market. They sent me down to Mobile to cover Hurricane Frederick. I thought they were trying to get rid of me. So
go down.
You
don't have to stand out there like they do on the Weather Channel. Dude.
We were just talking about that. At least they're wearing helmets now. I'll give them credit for that.
I know.
But James, I want to ask Jimmy one more thing real quick.
Yeah, go.
From Mobile, of course.
Yeah.
What about this song that Walker Hayes has come up with that I probably heard 3,000 times on the Weather Channel for an Applebee's commercial for the last 4 days, Jimmy? Did he do that on purpose, or did he expect to get an endorsement from them, or what happened?
So tell me more about it, because I might have just.
He's got a song called Fancy Like, which has 2 different strains about Applebee's in it. And of course, the Applebee's people must have called up and said, we like your song and we want to use it on our commercial. So I wondered if he did that on purpose, or if it was just accidental.
He's thinking marketing and all like that. But
well, he did pretty good with it, because I've heard it 4,000 times and I cannot get it out of my head. Between that and
so that's
Selena
a national
Gomez
commercial out
for
now.
Olive Garden, yeah. I don't ever want to go near either one of those places, since I've heard those songs so many times. Sorry about that, Jay.
That's all
right. So Jimmy, we use this as the opening music on the show tonight. Let me play a snippet and let's see if you can figure out this song. Listen real carefully.
Okay. Countryside of Life.
Wow, you're good.
We were doing
name that tune. I can name that tune in 5 notes.
Nick and I, he was playing that guitar part because he was explaining to me, and I already knew this though, but it has some kind of tricky finger, just kind of like what would you call that?
This is a good plug for Ricky Hirsch, the original guitar player for Wet Willie.
Yeah.
A good friend of ours is Ed King from Leonard Skinner, who did the Sweet Home Alabama lick. Jimmy's had a ton of guitar players, probably 80 over the last 50 years, that have come in here and there and done that lick. And it's really specific. So I was just telling him, and we're playing October 1st in Nashville. So, I was trying to learn that part. I was like, a lot of the guys don't play it right, like Ricky did it.
Yeah,
it's very, very tricky, a lot of finger picking, and it's he from Alabama as well, Ricky?
Yeah, Mobile.
Yeah. So it's a great lick that you guys pulled out for him. That's a good one.
Yeah, we were doing that one on this tour too, because the Blackberry Smoke guys liked it. We did that one. And we played.
That's a great song.
When we played Reading, Pennsylvania, we did an Otis Redding song. And I don't know why that was just a parallel. We said, well, let's do something by Otis Redding. And it's Reading, Reading, Pennsylvania. But we did. That's How Strong My Love Is by Otis.
All right. So Jimmy, what was your favorite song of all time that you recorded? Favorite song of all time that you recorded, not writing, but you recorded as a solo actor, Wet Willing.
It's not trite, but it's just the truth. But Keep on Smiling, we recorded at Capricorn Studios and
Macon, Georgia.
In 74. And Tom Dow was our producer. And we've had several producers like through the years that were good and we made good music with, but we were so impressed with, and it was so easy to work with Tom because he cared so much. I mean, he went later on, before he was with us, of course, he worked with Ray Charles and worked with, so many jazz greats, worked with the Almonds later on, and Leonard Skinner, and it just goes on and on, all the hits he produced. But he would walk in the studio as we were rehearsing it or playing it down, and he would close his eyes and just listen and walk in front of each instrument and listen to what they were playing, and make suggestions. Or his idea for that song was brilliant. But he said, you've got some 3 great verses here. You don't have a bridge or kind of a change up in the song as far as chords. It's got a harp solo, harmonica, but he said, you need to change it up a little bit. Let's take this verse, which says, just hanging out in a local bar, trying to figure out who the hell you are. Are you a farmer? Are you a star? He said, okay, drummer, we're gonna hit it like on the 1, and everybody's gonna hit it together. We're gonna go, bump. You're just hanging out, bump, in the local bar, boom, and you're wondering, boom, who the hell you are, boom. Are you a farmer? Are you a star? Then bring in the chorus, smiling through the rain, and then take it home, laughing at the pain. So we tried it, and it was one of those things where you trust me, you're gonna like this. And we looked at him like, who knew? That's pretty much a big hook. In fact, it's been in a couple movies, but it was in Country Strong. It was a movie with Gwyneth Paltrow and Tim McGraw, and so Gwyneth's character is a singer who's had some alcohol problems, and she's fallen off the wagon while she's on tour, and she ends up in a biker bar, standing on the bar with these bikers kind of pawing at her, and they're playing the song on the jukebox, and she's singing along, and it really puts a spotlight on that part of the song, just hanging out. And she's hanging out, and she is hanging out in a local bar trying to figure out who the heck she is, and she's singing that part. But that was a good idea by the music the music director for that movie.
So in 1974, I was a senior in high school working at the Big 1230 WTBC in Tuscaloosa.
The Big 1230.
Alabama, the larger than life 1230, a part of everything you do, Tuscaloosa's rock. And you know,
Roll
Keep
Tide.
On Smiling was number one on the top 40 survey in the summer of 74, the summer I graduated from high school. And if you would tell me one day, like in 2021, I would be talking with Jimmy Hall. I mean, this is just like too cool. I mean, this is like way too cool. In fact, what I'm going to do is work my hat here. My hat is not as cool as yours.
Here's me without a hat.
So
Rainhead.
So Jimmy, plug your website. Tell us everything you need to plug away, because we got to wrap it up. I could talk with you all night, but we got to wrap it up. So plug away.
It's easy. JimmyHall.com. Everything you need to know. Got a great webmaster. My friend David Brandt out in Colorado is a great friend, and make sure he's got everything posted on there and some great photos and I get on Instagram every once in a while. Actually, there's a lot of the things from the tour that we just wrapped up on Instagram, but you know, I dabble with Facebook, but truthfully, I don't spend a lot of time. I help manage it, but my wife takes charge of the day-to-day work with it. You know, she'll say, here's something you need to answer right here. Let's do this one and this one. You know?
Yeah, in the words of Tony Rice, Facebook is a place of bile and weapons grade ignorance. So staying away is probably a good thing.
A quotable quote.
So everybody go check out Jimmy's website and get his music. I mean, Jimmy, you're a legend. We thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm honored. I bow down to the great one. I will wear my hat in honor of you.
Thank you so much. And keep watching that weather, because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, we're going to do it, Jimmy. Thanks so much. And we'll talk soon. Have a great night.
All right, you guys.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. That is the legendary Jimmy Hall of the band Wet Willie. We do have to take a quick break here, and we are going to roll Tony Rice in his report. We've got Jen's This Week in Tornado History. I look like Freddy Krueger with this thing. You know, it doesn't look. This is a bad
You don't
look.
quite rock it like he does.
No. This is the Blizzard of '93 hat that Kevin Selly wore on the air, and it's getting a little dusty and a little musty. It needs reshaping, but I look like Freddy Krueger with this thing.
Yeah.
But we've got
Chin's
This Week in Tornado History, and we're going to come back with the Weather Roundup, picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
One of the most interesting launch failures occurred this past Saturday. Alameda, California-based startup Astra was making their third attempt to reach orbit with their 43-foot launch vehicle dubbed Rocket 3.3 from the Pacific Spaceport Complex on Kodiak Island, Alaska. This is a smaller rocket that's intended to launch payloads of up to 150 kilograms. Saturday's launch was the second attempt after one the previous day that was aborted just before liftoff. What happened next, though, is something I've never seen before. The rocket flew sideways. At T0, the rocket lifted off, but just a few inches, and then it tipped away from the launch pad, slowly righted itself, and then hovered. Turns out one of the 5 booster engines had failed, leaving the other 4 to do all the work. Astra hadn't previously released tech specs on their products, but we now know that the thrust-to-weight ratio on a Rocket 3 firing on all of its engines is 1.25. Because with just 4 of those engines running, that thrust-to-weight ratio is, 1, or hovering. Thankfully, a small launch team sent to Alaska left the chain link fence next to the launch pad open, and the little rocket just let itself out. About 30 seconds of literally hovering about, it began to gain altitude. And this is because as the fuel was burned, the vehicle's weight goes down. As long as the thrust remained the same, which it did, the rocket goes up. Flight controllers back in Alameda allowed the vehicle to fly until the engine shut down. This kept it inside the potential hazard area, which is always communicated out to ships before a launch. Another positive is that the engineers got 2.5 minutes of flight data. That's invaluable in figuring out what went right and what went wrong. Another positive is that the rocket fuel, a highly refined version of kerosene, was used up and didn't rain down on either Kodiak or the Gulf of Alaska. So a successful failure, I suppose. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, a total of 19 tornadoes occurred on September 5th, 1979. All but one were in association with the remnants of Hurricane David. For an overview from the Weather Prediction Center, David became a hurricane as it moved away from the Lesser Antilles. It was a Category 3 storm as it crossed Dominica. On August 30th, 1979, the storm became a Category 5 south of Puerto Rico. After hitting the Dominican Republic, one of the strongest to hit the country, it weakened to tropical storm strength. From there, David moved across the eastern tip of Cuba, skirted the east coast of Florida as a minimal hurricane, and then made a landfall on the Georgia coast on September 4th. 8 tornadoes respond from David in the state of Virginia. 2 were rated F3, the rest given an F2 rating. One of the F3s caused a great deal of damage in Fairfax County. 90 homes were damaged, 17 of which were uninhabitable. There was an unknown total of demolished cars and trees that were downed, and there was one fatality in Great Falls. A large tree fell at a house, killing a man, and he was caught in the debris there. We have a full summary about this event and hundreds more at tornadotalk.com.
All right. So, and again, thanks to Jimmy Hall of Wet Willie for joining us. It's always fun having him on the show, talking about the good old days. For those that don't know, I literally grew up in a radio station. When I was in high school and college, I was making $1.85 an hour, and I paid college tuition with that. That's how different times were back in the 1970s. But those songs were the soundtrack of my life, and to be able to speak with him, that's just pretty amazing stuff. But anyway, check out his website, and it's great having Jimmy on the show. So we've obviously, when it comes to a weather roundup, we've covered Ida. We've had a couple of junk storms out there. I call them junk, Kate and Julian, that basically amounted to nothing. We've got a new depression in the Eastern Atlantic. This should become Larry. All I can think of is the Three Stooges. That shows you my mentality level, or maybe how old I am. I just think of, where's Mo and Curly? But it looks like Larry could become a major hurricane, but at the same time, it gains latitude and probably recurves. So things have calmed down just a little bit. We got a long way to go. So let's see, Neil, what's the weather like? You're closest to the Ida action. What's going on up there?
So I got to tell you, my most recent intel has been with respect to Kate. So one of my former staff named Kate is very disappointed that the most recent guidance says that Kate still remains a disorganized depression.
Yeah, I called it a disorganized junk storm today. So the Kates of the world were not happy.
James. Way to go.
Not happy. No. And Julian was even worse. Julian, most people don't even know that Julian existed for 8 hours or something over the weekend. So yeah, not
I didn't get much mileage out of Tropical Storm Bill this year either. I was hoping Bill would hang around as a name long enough to get to Claudette, but that didn't happen. So
yeah. So anyway,
it's not over yet.
Exactly.
So I'm kind of excited in that we might get dew points in the 50s down here. Yeah. As Ida moves away and we get a northerly flow. And Jen, I think you're sending it down from your territory up there, huh?
Oh yeah, I am excited. It is. We've had the hottest couple of weeks up in the Ohio Valley, and front comes in. I'm giddy. It's going to feel like football. There's your transition to football talk, Neil. It's going to be great. Lows in the 50s, highs in the 70s, straight through the weekend. I am a happy camper. So football weather is coming.
I can hear the footballs flying, Neil. I can hear them flying.
I feel like I'm the only Wolfpack person here right now.
Yeah, we're missing Nate.
Where's Nate? A little weird. You usually have a posse of those.
I know. Well, I'll just say it right now. I think they're going to take it easy on Thursday. They're going to win by a long shot with USF. And my other alma mater, Gamecocks, I think they're definitely going to be in for the win on Saturday. So that's my call.
Man, you're in a little bit of an easier position than we are. OU is going to be playing Tulane, and we were supposed to be playing in New Orleans this week, but for obvious reasons, that's not happening. They're all coming here, which has stirred up a lot of feelings. There are a lot of people who feel like, maybe now isn't the time to ask these people who, they're probably from Louisiana, have gone through this disaster, their families are on their mind, the time to come out here and play some football. But as I understand it, everybody here is hoping to give them a really warm welcome, and our fans are planning to sort of cheer for two teams this weekend. So it'll be hot as blazes, but that's probably be about what they expect out in New Orleans this time of year anyway. So maybe we'll just knock like 3 degrees off of the dew point temperature. From their perspective, it'll feel like a vacation.
Yeah, so instead of just cheering for them, you can take it easy on them, Kim. You'll only win by 62 probably.
So as football brains rolls along, Troy, what's the UT season looking like down there?
Yeah, not that I really care. I mean, I'm at UT and I work the emergency operations center, but the big games here are going to be UT, of course, with Louisiana Lafayette in town on Saturday. And then my Aggies, I'm more supportive of that. And that's getting to be interesting with the SEC. But the Aggies actually.
Kent State coming in.
Yeah, Kent State coming in to play on Saturday. I'm happy to report, Kim, there will be no drop in dew points for those ball games. And that we'll roast here, probably with temperatures close to 100 for both games on Saturday. So.
Yeah,
y'all only got 2 hard games this year, Troy. This should be your year.
Now we got to talk with Tim. Tim, who do you pull for? Northern Illinois or Texas Tech or who?
Oh, did we drive Tim away?
Yeah, Tim hung up on us after we started getting into football here. There's no doubt about that. He's long gone.
No,
there he is.
There he is.
I'm here. Northern Illinois. Yeah. Huskies. We are the Huskies.
Who are the Salukis? Who is that?
Southern Illinois.
Southern Illinois, yeah.
Okay, I had him confused. So, okay. So you don't get this on the other weather podcast, only on this one. So, so we got to move on to picks of the week, and I hate to do this, but I've got to go into Studio A and put on some TV duds. The green shirt will not work, and there's screen grabs of me in that hat already on social media. But anyway, my pick of the week is. A little piece about Al Roker. Apparently, Al took a lot of criticism, and Al got a little uppity. He said, "I'm going to own you guys. I mean, you come after me, I'm coming after you." So anyway, that's my piece on his thoughts on the criticism he received after his reporting during Hurricane Ida. So Bill Murray, you roll with picks of the week. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. I'll do my weather roundup before we go, since I didn't get to talk about our rain. 2.79 inches of rain here in the last 24 hours.
Really?
The remnants of Hurricane Ida. It rained for 19.88 hours here. So it was a fine, gentle rain. So fortunately, no flooding or any crazy stuff like that. Good time for picks of the week here. Let's go around the old digital mahogany table here. Jennifer just muted herself like she didn't want to be picked. Jennifer, for that reason, like the kid that won't raise their hand at school, I'm going to pick you first.
I had to clear my throat. I was a little gloopy, so I was doing a quick. But I just did it anyway. Never mind. Hurricane hunters. It's the tweet that was just amazing. The hurricane hunters flying inside the eye of Ida, and meteorologically, this storm was just so amazing to watch everything unfold and how it grew. And I can't wait to read somebody's paper about this storm and how it exploded in intensity. And it was just amazing to see it. I'm always in awe of the hurricane hunters when I don't know how they do it, and they fly in there, and they're so amazing, and the information they give us is so valuable, and they're heroes flying in there and doing this. And so when they get some of those videos, it is just, it's amazing. So that's my pick.
That's an awesome pick, and it really is fun to watch that data in real time. It was amazing to see the range or the radius of the 34 knot winds expand literally in real time. As the hurricane hunters were flying one of those legs in, it almost doubled in just a few hours. And that told me a lot that, early that Sunday morning, this was going to be a lot worse for New Orleans than than if it just wandered off to the left. I have a pick of the week that I discovered over the weekend thanks to Johnny Parker. Y'all may already have been using this forever, but the folks up at Sims at the University of Wisconsin-Madison have a real-time advanced Dvorak technique calculator. And when the plane was not in the storm for some brief period on Sunday morning, it was accurately showing the drop in pressure from the 940s to around 931 millibars. And I thought, yeah, the other Sims. Yeah, sorry about that, Kim. But that was amazing to use, and in a rapidly dynamic situation like that one, I found it very useful. And I want to thank Johnny Parker for putting that out there on the weapons grade ignorance that we know as Facebook, because that was a really helpful tool for me as the hurricane was ramping up, allowed us to increase the urgency of our messages. Troy Kimmel, I'll come to you next. What do you got for us pick of the week?
Well, until about 15 or 18 minutes ago, I had no pick of the week, but my pick of the week is the frame grab that I grabbed with Bill running the numbers through Alabama tonight for all the college football games. I did see him hold up that sheet. So the numbers are being gathered in central Alabama tonight, and I'm sure those numbers will be checked in with the bookies later on. So,
well, actually, it's not a number sheet. I love the grid. It's the grid schedule, and all those games that are yellow in the SEC are the ones I'm looking forward to this year. And I was just noticing A&M just has such an easy schedule this year.
My Nittany Lions were not mentioned, by the way. I need to mention the Nittany Lions.
You play Auburn. You play Auburn.
Auburn on the 18th, but we start our season at Wisconsin.
Ooh.
That's no. I mean, that's
no
not
slouch.
a light schedule at all. No. So
You'll
that's
have to
going to
do
be
the jump
interesting.
around, Jen.
Yeah.
You going to Camp Randall to do the jump around?
No.
Okay.
No jumping around.
Troy, did we get your pick of the week?
Yeah, my pick of the week was you.
Oh,
Bill Murray.
That's really scary. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll work. All right, Dr. Kim Clocko McLean. What's your pick of the week?
Yeah, my pick of the week, especially after the discussion today, is just a little article in The Atlantic with someone who wrote in about their experience trying to think about, do I evacuate for this? And having recently had a COVID diagnosis and thinking through the complexities of that. So I just thought it was a neat thing to share relevant to our conversation. And Jen, I do want to say for the Nittany Lions, what you're really looking forward to is the game with Purdue, right? Like that's the one you're really worried about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do worry about Purdue. They're sneaky.
They're coming to
those Boilermakers.
Ohio State randomly once every 8 years. That's all they do.
Goodness.
And that's still one of the greatest games ever. That young man that was terminally ill of cancer, the Purdue kids, really responded to him and upset Ohio State one night. I figured just for him, and it was one of those life-altering experiences to watch that, because I'd seen him all day on game days. It's one of those stories, that Tom Rinaldi or whatever his name is would always tell, that would just bring you to tears. But that's funny that you pick something from the Atlantic, Kim, because there's also a story recently out by author Jeffrey Stern about the Battle of High Hill, which is where, big fire last year was converging on a town in Oregon. The community faced a choice: they could flee or they could stay and fight the fire. And it's a fascinating story. So I've reached out to Mr. Stern to see if he would join us, maybe with a couple of those people. I can't say that was probably the best advice in a really dangerous situation, but fortunately they lived to tell about it. So maybe we'll have Mr. Stern and some of those folks from that little town on the show. I think that would be very interesting. So anyway, so that's, I guess, my second pick of the week. Dr. Neil Jacobs, always a thrill to have you on the show. And so we're always honored by your presence. I was excited to see your new gig, some of the press releases from, a little company that we've had on the show a couple of times. We're fascinated by that radio occultation stuff. And I see you're working with them a little bit. That was really cool.
Yeah, they're one of the companies that I'm doing some work with. So it's a pretty cool, exciting stuff. GPS RO data. So before I get to my pick of the week, I did just want to talk a little bit more about the hurricane hunters. Phenomenal job they were doing. Holy cow. Lots of flights. I can tell you from firsthand experience that it's not easy, the schedule that they work through, particularly with all the restrictions because of coronavirus. But then the flights are, I got to say, they're pretty exciting. But if you have a chance, go check out the day before landfall. There was one particular flight, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I'm assuming everyone was all right because they continued to deploy drop zones. But there was a segment of the flight where the altitude went down really fast and the pressure went up really fast. And then they went and did a couple of loops and then continued on with the flight. So I'm not exactly sure if that was planned or not, or what happened, but flying into a Category 4 storm, you got to expect some turbulence. So whatever it was, I'm sure there'll probably be some good stories. But my pick of the week are the forecasters at the Hurricane Center. That was a 90-foot putt from the rough, and they sunk it. So well played.
No question about it. I mean, it's just phenomenal. Just the track up here on my computer, and what you sent around to us, Tim, was amazing. That about the deviation.
Yeah.
That really was cool. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Jacobs. Come back anytime. We're always glad to have you on the show. Tim Marshall, it's about the 11th time you've been on the show. I've lost count. You're like the Alec Baldwin of WeatherBrains.
We all have a 5 club.
Yeah, we certainly. If we don't, we should have it. So maybe you can christen it. But you got a pick of the week for us, Tim? Anything you want to share?
No, I'm going to pick obviously the Hurricane Center. They did a great job. This was an amazing storm. In talking to Bill Reed, a former director, so there's about a 50-50 chance that this thing could intensify when it crosses that deep, warm water loop in the middle of the Gulf. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But they were thinking about going with it. And Cat 3, 4 by landfall. So that was really a good call, I think. And I really think that their forecasts are getting better, especially if the hurricane is moving. When it's moving, I think they got a peg. When it slows down and starts to stall, and then that gives them more grief. But they did a great job. Hats off to the Hurricane Center.
Absolutely, there's no question about that. And I think through the period on Saturday morning, you're looking at that ship's model, and it did not have high probabilities of rapid intensification in it. The highest numbers were in the 41% range, for a 25 knot increase in 24 hours, which wouldn't have been, wasn't going to be a mega storm. It would have been a significant hurricane. But when you saw those millibars start clicking off like mile markers on an Autobahn, it was like, this thing's going to take off now. So anyway, just another one in the books, another long history of terrible hurricanes along the Gulf Coast. Well, any further business to bring in front of this august body tonight, Troy Kimmel?
I would say, sir, there's not. I would like to move for an adjournment.
I'm sure I've got a second out there somewhere. Kim seconded it. Well, all in favor, say aye. WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast. It's all about weather. We do this labor of love generally on Monday nights. Every time I say that, the next week's on Tuesday night or moves for something. We have some really exciting guests coming up in future weeks. There's this person on the show named Jen Naramore is like 3 for 3 on legendary guests. She has scheduled for your listening enjoyment something that we could never do before, and that was get Dr. Neil Shepard on the show. I mean, Neil Frank. Neil Shepard, I don't know where I came with that. Neil Frank will be on the show. And what day is that? I can't pull the calendar up, Jen.
I want to the 24th
of September. Okay.
I think, yep, of September.
So that is going to be one that you'll want to put on your calendar and be ready for, because we're going to all have some great questions for Dr. Neil Frank that night, and some other fun guests that are coming up. We're going to talk on Labor Day night on Mondays. We're not going to a holiday schedule, but we will be starting at 7:00 that night with filmmaker Josh Bullock and his documentary God and the Tornado.
Yeah.
Which he featured James in. And I can just remember vividly reading books about tornadoes in the 1960s and early 1970s. One of the oddities that was out there was that, a church might get destroyed by a tornado when you would think divine intervention would keep that from happening, while the local saloon or watering hole down the street would survive, because mainly it was open and had swinging doors on it. And I thought those are always fascinating things that people said. We're going to talk about the National Weather Service and their efforts in the cloud with Michelle Manelli and Andrea Blastein, September 13th. Kim's going to come back with her radar show that was the show that was scheduled for tonight on the 20th. You want to tout that one real quick, Kim?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to chat a little bit about both the experience of chasing things like hurricanes and severe storms with modern radars, and just look to what's coming down the pipe. I know that our field is getting acclimated a little bit to the dual pole radars that are operational now across the Weather Service, but there's another phase of radars that is pegged to be coming. It's always 5 or 10 years away, and it's been that way for a very long time. But we'll talk with our radar engineers, one from MIT Lincoln Labs, and then two who are faculty here with the Radar Innovations Lab at the University of Oklahoma. So it should be a really fun show. Bring all your super nerdy radar questions.
Yeah,
and it's the 27th. I was wrong. It's the 27th. So it's the week after Kim's is when we have Neil Frank on. Yeah, remember pumpkin's happening. So my brain is
we're all shutting down.
Yeah. It'll be a great show.
Right. We'll send those guest suggestions, comments, whatever, to email@weatherbrains.com. Aubrey's busy tonight checking out the tornadoes in her neck of the woods, but we're going to try to get her. Hopefully, as we move to a little earlier schedule, we can have more presence from Aubrey and get a good email inbox every week. We'll save what we've collected in the inbox this week and save it for next week. So, but until next week, which will be Monday, September the 6th, when we do show 816, talking about God and the Tornado. I'm guest booking officer, recently promoted to guest revenue officer, apparently in an email by one of our folks, Bill Murray, saying, "Have a great week and God bless."
Great show.
Weekend, guys.
Great show.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Tim.
Neil. Tim.
Thank you for putting it together, Kim. Always good to see you, Tim, and Dr. Jacobs.
All righty. Take care, guys.
It's great to hear about Michelle coming on with the cloud stuff. I got to say, all these complaints that you hear about dissemination, that's the answer. That's going to solve it.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to that one.
Very cool.
Anything I need, we need to ask her. Just send us a line.
Yeah, I'll send you some emails.
I always love those.
See y'all.
Thank y'all for staying up late with us.
Night.
See you.
Good night.
Well, that was a fun show tonight. Wow. Great to have our friend Neil Jacobs, Tim Marshall with us as we talked about Ida, Jimmy Hall of Wet Willie. That's always fun for me to have Jimmy on the show. But thanks for listening. And again, we'll be on Instagram, Song of the Night. Follow me on the gram. Do it every night after the weather segment. Have a little fun, play a little music. Span WX. But we'll see you guys next Monday night, back on the Monday night schedule next week for WeatherBrains. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.